Picture this. You're in Paris at night. The Eiffel Tower is lit up like a golden beacon, shimmering against the deep blue sky. Street musicians are playing softly nearby, couples are laughing, tourists are clicking photos, and the whole city has that magical hum only Paris can create. And right there, in that very moment, Johnny Depp makes a confession that nobody saw coming. Words that seem to float into the air and wrap themselves around everyone listening. Words that shook the Eiffel Tower, not because the tower itself moved, but because the meaning was so strong, so raw, that people swore they felt the city tremble. Now, think about this for a second. How many times have you carried something inside your heart, something unspoken, something private, that felt like it was burning a hole in you? And then one day, finally, you let it out. Maybe it was to a friend, maybe to a stranger, maybe even just to yourself. But the second you spoke it, it felt like everything shifted. That's exactly the energy people felt from Johnny in Paris. His words weren't just sounds. They were years of silence breaking, years of emotion spilling, years of weight finally lifted. People around him said the way he spoke didn't sound like a celebrity giving a performance. It sounded like a man finally allowing himself to be human. His voice wasn't booming or dramatic. It was steady, quiet even, but with this unmistakable depth, like every syllable was carrying the weight of years. And that's what made it unforgettable. Paris is called the City of Love for a reason. It's not just the architecture or the history or the food. It's the feeling. It's the way the air itself seems to hum with romance. And Johnny, a man who's lived a life full of chaos and spotlight, picked this city for his confession. That wasn't random. It wasn't a coincidence. It was deliberate. He could have said these words anywhere, in Los Angeles, in London, in New York. But no. He chose Paris. And he chose the Eiffel Tower as his backdrop. That iron giant that has seen thousands of proposals, millions of whispered secrets, endless moments of love. He picked the one place in the world that turns every word into poetry. When he spoke, fans nearby described it like a scene from a film. One woman said she literally stopped mid-step and forgot where she was going. Another said the moment gave her goosebumps, like she was witnessing history. Tourists who didn't even understand what was said still felt the electricity in the air, that strange way emotions can cross language without needing translation. It was as if the Eiffel Tower itself became part of the confession, standing tall, glowing, almost leaning in to listen. And then came the silence. You know that kind of silence that isn't empty but full? Where everyone is holding their breath, trying to process what just happened. That's what filled the space after Johnny's words. For a moment, Paris seemed to freeze. Then came the gasps. A few claps. Some people whispered. Others just stared, stunned, their minds racing to make sense of it. Of course, it didn't take long for the internet to explode. Within minutes, people nearby were uploading clips, typing out quick posts, sending voice notes to friends. The confession spread like wildfire. Fans who weren't even there started dissecting every detail. What exactly did he say? What did he mean by that pause? Why Paris? Why now? Why this moment? Theories flew across social media faster than the twinkling lights of the Eiffel Tower could flash. Some swore it was a declaration of love. Others thought it was closure, a way of letting go of the past. A few believed it was a promise of something new, a hint at a beginning. And then, of course, there were the wild theories, the kind that always pop up around Johnny. Was it a hidden message? Was it meant for someone specific? Was it something bigger than just personal feelings? The beauty of a confession like this is that it left room for interpretation. It let people project their own hopes, fears, and experiences onto his words. But here's the part people often overlook. Johnny has always been someone who ties his words and his choices to places. Think back. London has been his playground for music, for rebellion, for leaning into his artistic side. Hollywood? That's been his battlefield, full of fame, fights, and the struggle to survive. But Paris? Paris has always been different. For Johnny, Paris has been softer. More private. More romantic. It's a place where he seemed to lower his guard, where he allowed himself to be just a man, not a celebrity. So when he chose Paris for this confession, it wasn't random. It was symbolic. It was almost like Paris itself gave him the courage to say what he'd been holding inside. And it wasn't the first time Paris has been tied to his story. Think about his past relationships. Think about the years he spent in and out of France, away from Hollywood's noise. Some of his most meaningful life moments were tied to this city. So when he spoke here, it wasn't just about the words. It was about everything Paris has meant to him for decades. That's why this moment hit harder. That's why people couldn't stop talking about it. But why now? That's the real question, isn't it? Why choose this particular moment in his life, at this stage of his career, to open up? Experts who study celebrity culture often say timing is the biggest clue. Stars don't just reveal truths randomly. The timing usually tells the real story. And right now, Johnny is in a new chapter. He's not just the actor battling headlines anymore. He's the man reclaiming his space, rebuilding his story, and stepping into the light in his own way. Paris was the perfect symbol for that. The timing wasn't just about confession. It was about transformation. For the fans, though, it became personal. People started sharing how his words made them reflect on their own lives. Some said it reminded them of confessions they'd been too scared to make. Others said it gave them hope, that if someone like Johnny, under the weight of so much attention and scrutiny, could finally open up, then maybe they could too. That's the power of moments like this. They ripple out, touching people far beyond the original setting. And that's why this moment wasn't just about Johnny. It was about all of us. Because who hasn't carried a secret? Who hasn't wanted to stand under the Eiffel Tower, or anywhere for that matter, and just let it out? His confession became bigger than him. It became a mirror, reflecting back the desires and struggles we all carry inside. Of course, not everyone agreed on what it meant. Some people argued endlessly online. Was it love? Was it closure? Was it the start of something new? But maybe that's the point. Maybe the beauty of a confession like this isn't that we all know the exact meaning, but that it makes us feel something. That it sparks curiosity. That it keeps us hooked. Because when Johnny Depp speaks, especially in a moment like this, the story never ends where you think it will. And maybe that's why Paris was the only place this could have happened. Because Paris doesn't just hear words, it absorbs them, amplifies them, and turns them into legend. And Johnny knew that. He's always known the power of a stage. And on that night, the Eiffel Tower wasn't just a landmark. It was his stage, his witness, his co-star in a confession that the world will never forget. So what do you think? Was Johnny's Paris confession about a lost love? Was it about letting go of pain? Or was it the spark of a brand new beginning? The truth might never be fully known. But one thing's for sure, it left the world talking, wondering, and waiting for what comes next. And maybe that's the real genius of Johnny. Not just the words he chooses, but the way he chooses when, where, and how to say them. The way he makes us stop, lean in, and listen. Because behind the fame, behind the movies and the music, he's still just a man. A man who feels. A man who carries secrets. A man who sometimes chooses the most romantic city in the world to finally let those secrets out. So here we are, still talking about it. Still replaying the moment. Still wondering what it all means. And maybe that's exactly how he wanted it. Now let me ask you, if you were standing under the Eiffel Tower that night, hearing Johnny's words, how would you have felt? Would you have seen it as love, as closure, or as something entirely new. That's the beauty of this moment. It belongs to him, but it also belongs to all of us. And this story? It's not over. Because with Johnny, the story never ends where you expect. It keeps unfolding, keeps surprising, keeps pulling us back in. That's why we watch. That's why we listen. That's why we care. So let's keep following this journey together. Because if Paris taught us anything, it's that Johnny Depp's words still have the power to stop the world in its tracks. And the next chapter? Well, that's something none of us will want to miss.